massive numbers of people are going to misunderstand you and misperceive you and project all types of things onto you and not be able to relate to what you're doing. And you have to reach a place where the mission is more important than that. You have to get over yourself and say, the mission is more important than my own ego. People that have been on deep healing journeys, transformational journeys for decades, who are like carrying huge wisdom, their fear and resistance still outweighs their conviction in their own wisdom. Of course, there are seasons where it's time to rest. You can't just always be fully switched on. You need to listen to your body and take the time to rest. But a lot of people, they've been resting for 5-10 years. They're literally just like, their life has become an endless healing process, and it's an elaborate form of resistance because there's always the next thing to heal, so I can avoid actually taking action and building something and impacting this earth.
So I wanted to ask you if you can remember the moment in your journey, or perhaps series of moments, when it became clear to you that you wanted to do the work that you do for a living, that you wanted to move from being a participant, someone who was attending retreats, someone who was, I'm not sure if you were getting coaching at the time, but yeah, just share a little bit more about that moment of going from participant to actually being of service.
Yeah, good question. Thanks for asking. So my journey was interesting in this respect. To cut a long story short, I tried psychedelics around age 19 when I was feeling pretty lost, and that set me on a course of really discovering that a lot of the narratives and the scripts that had been handed to me in life were, created by other human beings, and that they were pretty narrow, and that life had this vastly wider range of possibilities. So I was really reactivated as a student of life, a curious student of life who felt like I need to find my own answers, my own meaning, my own freedom, my own purpose. And so I basically launched onto this passionate quest for freedom, for meaning, for I didn't know exactly what. And that led me to start writing prolifically. I started learning that some people would just write on the internet and they would find a way to earn a living by writing on the internet. So I felt like maybe that's something I could do. So I just started prolifically sharing my insights that I was having from psychedelic journeys and just further contemplation and reading books. I started writing prolifically. I started traveling to other countries. I studied abroad for 1 month in Spain, and that kind of opened the floodgates. And I felt at the time like I couldn't just finish university and go into a normal job. I felt like I wasn't cut out for that at that stage of my life. I didn't think it was going to work out well. So I learned about teaching English in other countries. So I went to South Korea to teach English for a year, lived in Asia for 16 months, and I was continuing to write and blog prolifically during that time. So all of that was essentially me trying to carve out some kind of alternate career path or move towards something where I could be living my dreams and essentially earning a living while living my dreams. That was kind of my modus operandi. That's what I was trying to achieve. And English in Asia was a big step. It really opened my eyes. And I continued writing prolifically around that time. And I was guest blogging for some publications, and I guest posted on HighExistence a couple times, which, is a site that we both know very well. Apotheosis was born out of HighExistence. And they liked my writing. They asked me to become an intern for a modest compensation. And I saw the opportunity, said yes, took on more responsibility pretty quickly, and proposed an idea where I would become a co-owner of the site if we hit certain benchmarks within a certain time frame. And we hit those benchmarks, so I became a co-owner of HighExistence, and then I quit my last day job in 2015 to essentially go all in on just earning a living being a digital content creator of art on High Existence. And at that time, we were earning a living from that through a combination of ads and affiliate revenue. And we were starting to experiment with selling different types of products like t-shirts and posters and courses and stuff like that. And then Martine was the one who said we should create a transformational retreat because he had done a lot of retreats. And I didn't know much about retreats at that point, but we just said, okay, you seem confident on this. And so we just decided to give it a go. So essentially, I didn't have much experience with retreats or with facilitation, and I was just brought as a kind of co-facilitator, not a primary facilitator. Like I was brought on the retreat to help out and to bring good vibes and good energy and to learn. And I just immediately something really clicked in that environment where I just felt like, oh, this comes very naturally to me. It's very natural for me to be in this type of environment and just help to uplift people, have meaningful conversations with people, help to facilitate meaningful processes for people, essentially take all the wisdom that I've learned and been studying for years and bring it into a more practical transformation-based context. So that first retreat in 2018, 8 years ago now, was a big epiphany moment of like, okay, I belong in this world. I fit here and definitely want to do more things like this. And from that point, we started expanding into doing more retreats and starting to offer coaching. So for me, it was really a baptism by fire. I didn't have much experience actually like in that world. I just kind of got thrown into it and something clicked, and I was willing to just essentially take that and immediately start doing more of it. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't do. A lot of people feel like they can't dive in and start just doing the thing until they've received 18 certifications and checked tons of boxes. But I've always been more so someone who's like, just dive in and do the thing and learn by doing and learn by practicing the thing. And so that's what I did. And yeah, then I stepped away from High Existence in late 2019, stepped away from being part of the core team, just stepped back to being more of an advisor and co-owner, just to go all in on my own path, doing my own thing. And then, I've collaborated further with High Existence and Apotheosis at times since then. But essentially, yeah, I went just all in on my own path and doing it for myself, creating my own practice. And that's how it unfolded. Yeah.
So if we come closer to the present day, because now you're facilitating men's work, that's primarily what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So this journey must have kind of repeated itself in a different form for men's work, because at some point you weren't always facilitating men's work, right? At some point, I don't know if you were first a participant in that, and then you decided this is something that I would actually like to do. Funny enough, I remember actually speaking to you at that Volcano Island retreat. Um, and I remember you saying it was like an interesting moment for me because it felt like I was seeing the idea before it was like born. Like I was seeing just the seed where you said something like, yeah, I just have this feeling that I think it was the Brotherhood of the Ever Innocent Heart. You said you just have this feeling that this is what you want to do more of. And at the time, we didn't have much discussions about why. You just had this like intuitive feeling that this is what you wanted to do. And it's pretty amazing to see now, fast forward, I don't know how many years, probably like 4 years later from that, I think. And now, you've got this fully functioning, flourishing men's work business. So that's pretty cool to witness. But the question is, if you could speak to that transition going from being a participant in men's work to being a facilitator and actually building a business around it.
Yeah, great question. So I was part of a fraternity back in my university days, and in a way, that was kind of an early introduction to forms of men's work. So that was way back in 2011, 2012, thereabouts. We did some kind of like sharing circle type of processes back at that time. So that was just kind of getting my feet wet. But I remember even back then when we did some kind of sharing circle, they asked the guys like, whose answers are you listening to most closely when you hear people sharing in this circle? And there were maybe like 30, 40 of us or more in the room. And quite a few of the guys said they were listening to my answers most closely when I was speaking in the circle. So there was just something from early days where something just kind of clicked, that it just felt natural for me to be a leader in men's spaces. And then already on that first apotheosis retreat, I met Adam Rice, who had already done a lot of men's work type stuff. And meeting him was a significant moment for me because he really embodied certain qualities of mature, sacred masculinity, you could say, that activated something for me. And he facilitated some things on apotheosis retreats related to men's work. We did a bit of men's work actually on apotheosis retreats. But then it was really in 2020, I decided to join Jiro Taylor's 1 year Shambhala Warrior experience and initiation, which was a digital experience that combined men's work with business training. And it was a significant investment for me at the time. It was like a big decision to do that. And that was a very impactful experience. I was really, really affected in powerful ways by that experience. And it was kind of coming out of that 1 year experience. And then that sparked me doing other men's experiences. I've now experienced men's work led by a bunch of different people. I also joined Arca Brotherhood for quite a significant period of time and learned from them as well. And but yeah, it was coming out of Jiro Taylor's container that in 2021 I decided to create the Sovereign Man, which this would have happened before the Volcano Island retreat, where you and I met in person the first time. I led this 8-week experience called the Sovereign Man, which was kind of my first attempt at leading a men's work thing myself. And that was really successful and felt really good and impactful. And then the name Brothers of the Ever Innocent Heart came to me a couple months later during this big heart opening where I was really like crying a lot for days on end. I was really experiencing this deep kind of massive heart opening. And that name came to me during that time, so it felt significant. And then I would have seen you a couple months later at Volcano Island and told you about that. And then it would have been a couple months later that I founded Brothers of the Ever Innocent Heart, which eventually became Council of Kings. Brothers of the Ever Innocent Heart is still the inner name and kind of inner mystic current of Council of Kings. But Council of Kings became kind of the public-facing name, and a name that calls men more into their leadership, because over time there became more of an emphasis on training men to be leaders in their families, their community, and in their world. And so that's how it unfolded. And then again, I just like dove in and baptism by fire. I mean, I had experienced a lot of men's work, but it was really through the actually diving in and leading men's work that, I put the reps in and developed a lot of mastery in that area. At this point, I've sat in over 500 men's circles and I've led 350 or so of those. So I really put a significant amount of time, effort, and energy into men's work. And it's something dear to my heart. And so, I feel blessed to have found it. And real quick, for those who aren't aware, men's work is essentially a group, you could say a group coaching and group training modality where men gather in groups and share the honest truth of what's going on in their life and hold one another in a space of witnessing without agenda, hold one another in a space of unconditional love. So the deepest elements are really truth and love and brotherhood, guys coming together to build each other up and also challenge each other, call each other out on our bullshit, call each other forward. And then there's many different types of exercises you can bring in. That's something I love about men's work and transformational work in general, is that there really are no super rigid rules. It's to a great extent a blank canvas where your creativity is the limit, and whatever you dream up, you can bring it into the space. You can experiment with all sorts of exercises and possibilities. So I'm always bringing in different types of exercises, and it's really, I see it as a holistic development system where we're training guys in all areas of life. All areas of life as a man, nothing is off limits. So all of life can be brought into the space. Yeah.
So what did you get out of your early days with men's work that, made you feel like this is such an important modality?
Yeah, good question. I think it was most notably, for one, just the men that I met in those spaces just were a caliber of man and a type of man that I found rare to meet in life. So even just meeting that caliber of man and seeing these like grown, strong men, builders and leaders who had, accomplished awesome things in life, seeing them show up and like open their heart and bare their hearts and souls and share their wounds and just share really honestly what they were going through, and feeling that the universality of pain and struggle in the human experience and the experience of men, and just connecting at a heart level through witnessing those men and kind of absorbing by osmosis some of the qualities and the culture of that type of group. Because there's that old saying that you become the average of 5 people you spend the most time with. It's something about just being immersed in a culture of men who are holding themselves to a higher standard and who are speaking truth. That's the other thing that's very refreshing. A lot of the modern world is very fake, and people have a lot of surface level conversations and don't really share the deeper, realer thing that's underneath. And so to be in a space where guys were really taking off the masks and just baring their hearts and speaking the real truth of their experience and sharing with one another the real direct truth of what they saw in each other's experience was very refreshing and very medicinal. For me, I think that's an underestimated medicine, but just being in a space of realness and directness and real truth is very medicinal in an age of a lot of shallow distractions and fakeness, and also sharing my truth, stepping into that space and being in a group of 15 men, all eyes on you, and just like taking the mask off yourself and just being real, being vulnerable, being honest. This is what's really there in my experience right now. This is what's real. This is what's alive. This is what I'm celebrating. This is what's challenging me right now. This is what's breaking my heart right now. Just like being honest in that space in a masculine culture where men are not like, there's so much masculine culture, men are kind of bullying each other in subtle ways, or like looking for how to push each other's buttons. There's a lot of immature masculinity out there where men are subtly tearing each other down and not able to hold space for really appreciating each other. So to be in a space, a different type of masculine culture where men actually are cheering each other on and holding each other in love, and holding each other accountable and calling each other out on bullshit, but doing it in a way that's loving and caring and rooted in trust and safety, and that's actually for the man's higher good. Like, let's call you out on this pattern so we can call you forward ultimately, so that you can step into something better for yourself. I'd say those are some of the things that impacted me. Yeah.
Why would someone join a men's group instead of just go to therapy?
I think everybody has to find the modality that's right for them. There's so many valuable transformational modalities out there, and I think therapy can be a great modality for a lot of people. So I would encourage people to try out different things and see what really resonates with them. I think for some people, that one-on-one personalized context could be really needed, and they might derive more benefit from that depending where they are in their process. Um, at the same time, I do think, well, there have been some studies. I haven't looked super deeply into this, but I have looked into it enough to see that there have been studies showing that men often derive more benefit from a group setting versus a one-on-one setting. Um, and I'm, yeah, feeling into why that is. I think there is just something about a group energy that activates something very ancient and very primal in men. It's like a group of men gathering with a shared sense of mission and a shared sense of rising together towards some kind of objective, almost like on the hunt together, the hunt for the life that we know in our hearts that we're meant to be living, the hunt for wholeness and showing up as the men and leaders that we know we can be in the world. Being that type of group environment, it offers certain things that you can't receive in a one-to-one environment. You're not going to, in a one-to-one environment, you're not going to have that sense of tribe. You're not going to have that sense of like a hall of mirrors where every man's story hits you in a different way and mirrors your own story in its own unique way. So in a men's circle, it's almost like you've got 15 different or 10, 10 or 15 different kind of medicine men all giving you their unique medicine through just sharing their truth. Their truth presents its own unique type of medicine. And there can be kind of a group field created, like a group. There's something very powerful about a group sense of safety and trust. Like I trust this group and I feel safe with this group. And I feel all these brothers witnessing me and holding me together. It's in a one-to-one context, there might be more of a sense of like, okay, it's just me and this one other person. This one other person is kind of my sole lifeline of safety and truth here. And I'm looking to them and I'm putting everything on them. But a group, a circle dynamic, it kind of disperses that. And there's just a sense of just an equal eye level group of guys showing up for each other and yeah, going on a mission together in a sense. I think that's one of the best things that can develop in men's work is a sense of like, we're all in this together. We're working toward a greater mission together. There's something bringing us here in our hearts where we've been called to come together and band together to become the men that we know we can be for something greater for this earth. Like this earth is actually calling out for men to just be good men first and foremost. The earth is calling out for men to be embodied examples of love and care and maturity and wisdom. And so we have an opportunity to do that together here and come together and share in that and like celebrate our victories together and lick our wounds together and have that sense of tribe. Um, yeah.
Yeah, something else I would add, which is similar to what you have been saying, is that it's a very different dynamic in a men's group than therapy. One that stands out to me is in the men's group, there's not a sense of people trying to fix you. I'm not sure if, I don't think you're supposed to feel like that in therapy necessarily either. But in therapy, you are pretty much paying someone to help you heal usually a specific disorder or pattern in your life. Whereas men's group it feels like it's more pure, it's more honest. It literally is just like guys getting in a circle, sharing what's really alive. And of course, there's exercises and all sorts of things you can do, but it's just sharing what's really going on for you and really listening to the other guys. And sometimes it's like we don't have the solution necessarily for what the other guy's going through, but like we're gonna witness this person in love, and there is something deeply healing about that. Yeah, and it's sometimes not healing in the way that it's necessarily gonna like you come out of the men's group and your problem will just be solved. I think that's part of what's so powerful about the group dynamic is being witnessed and sharing um, sometimes things that you would never share with anyone else in your life. And it's just, bunch of dudes who are just like, yeah, we see you, we feel you, and we're here with you, and it's okay. There's something, yeah, it's almost like it's working on a deeper level sometimes than therapy.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think also another thing that came up there is that therapy is really like all about you, which can be helpful in a way, like if you need that really personalized attention, but that can also kind of amplify this modern fixation on the individual self where everything's always about me, 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 and what's going on with me and how can I fix my problems in my life. Men's work is more about the group. And a lot of what you're doing in men's work is actually holding space for the other men, practicing your deep listening and practicing, can I give the depth of presence and care to these other men that I would like for them to give to me? And even having that opportunity to serve the group through your presence, to be part of a community where we're all serving each other actually through real care, that gives men a sense of purpose. We're actually legitimately showing up and helping each other. It's not a one-way dynamic where it's like, oh, I'm the victim, I'm the patient, and I need the therapist to help me. It's like, no, we're all coming together in a dynamic to co-create something and to help each other and to lift each other up. And the focus isn't endlessly on you, it's on the group. And can we cultivate a group field together that's like a rich and nourishing and generative field here? So yeah, it's very different from a one-to-one dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that difference that you just named there is huge. I know there's a lot of studies that have come out about how like neurosis and suffering actually is correlated with how basically self-centered you are. They did a study where I can't remember the exact details, but I think they counted like how many times an individual would refer to themselves. So they gave them like a writing exercise, and it was like the amount of times they said I or my or me. And then they did some other tests to calculate like how much that person was suffering in their life, basically. And they found there was a direct correlation between how much the person referred to themselves. So it's yeah, it's really something interesting about therapy because I do see a lot of people go to therapy and become more self-absorbed. They can become way more aware of their problems. But it's like, did that actually help? So I feel like there's really something to the group dynamics and what men's work offers that, like I said, it's like working at a deeper level than therapy in some ways.
Yeah. Thanks for observing that. And another observation that comes up is just that when men's work is done well, it's also, it doesn't stop at just the group processing and the group healing. There's also an element of, okay, boys, at a certain point, it's time to snap out of the endless healing loops and become men and actualize something in the world. And that's kind of taking place alongside the group processing and healing. I mean, every stage of life is going to bring up new things to process. So there's always a place for witnessing. But men's work, in contradistinction to therapy, it invites men to step into their purpose, and you invite men to set goals and undertake challenges and be held accountable to actually build the next brick in their legacy and bring something forth. We've had guys create their first books and create their first albums and do their first performances and start holding space for people and create their first organizations and quit jobs and find relationships and propose to their wives. And I've been a groomsman. Last year was a groomsman in one of the brothers' weddings, and his best man was another one of the brothers in the brotherhood who he met through the communities I've cultivated over the years. So a moment like that shows the real depth of what's being cultivated there. It's not like, let me try to go to therapy to fix myself and then move on with my life. Like, I think in the best case, men's work is actually creating very deep relationships, very real deep relationships and friendships that themselves can be transformational and life transforming. And at the same time, I like to not like I like to let go and trust guys' intuitive intelligence of when they want to come and go from men's work. It's like some guys do just need to come in for a season, experience something like that for 6 months and then move on, and they received what they needed to receive from it. Other guys, though, they love the work and they love the brotherhood and they love continuing to train together for years on end. In a lot of cases, we have guys who've been training together for 1, 2, 3 years. We have guys who will take a sabbatical and then they'll say, yeah, well, being apart really helped me realize what this is adding to my life, and I want to come back and keep going with this. And so I like to make space for both possibilities. Guys coming in for shorter term seasons and receiving something, as well as the possibility of creating something long term together, creating more of a culture and a training ground that can stand the test of time and develop into real brotherhood and deeper collaborations. I recently co-created and published a rap album with one of the brothers who's been a long-term brother in the space. I've co-facilitated a retreat last year with a brother who's been a long-term brother in the space, planning to be co-facilitating with more long-term brothers this year. And on other retreats, I've done that. And so there's actual like deeper collaborations and co-creations that emerge over time too, which is really beautiful. And if I look at what I believe have been some of the most successful and effective men's organizations in history, things like monasteries come to mind, like Christian or Buddhist monasteries that were, either totally male in nature or predominantly men. And those were places where if men felt the calling, they could make it their way of life and they could just stay there ongoingly, because it was more than a personal development modality. It was a real community and culture and ecology of practices, and like something that could just become a deeply meaningful part of your life and could just become more meaningful over time. So that's another dimension of what is being cultivated, within our brotherhood.
I feel like an important question to ask here is, why just men's work? Why not sharing with both men and women?
Yeah, good question. I mean, there's many things out there that are for both men and women, right? So there's no shortage of those types of offerings if people are called to that type of space. And I think I've done plenty of things like that. Like I've been part of containers people have led with both men and women, and that can be extremely powerful too. But I do think every type of modality has its unique its trade-offs and its unique strengths. And I think with men's work, you get something different when you bring a group of men together and you don't have any women present. As men, we all know this, that there's a different dynamic when you're hanging out with your brothers versus when you introduce any woman to the dynamic. There's something very deep in our biology or in our ancestry where a dynamic changes as soon as a woman is present. It just changes the energy, it changes the dynamic in certain ways, and there's certain spaces that you can no longer go to in the same way as men. There's certain energies that are not cultivated in the same way. And so, yeah, there's just a unique flavor that you get when it's like you're with the brothers, you're cultivating something with the brothers. And it's hard to say what that is. It's kind of mysterious, but there's something impactful and I'd say ancient and primal about it that feels important.
Yeah. I think such a big part of the medicine of men's work is this like honesty, and it's like dropping the performance, dropping the mask. And it just does seem to be the way that it is. And when there are women around, it's not even conscious, but men are doing some kind of performance, some kind of posturing, peacocking, whatever you want to call it. And it can be so subtle, like on apotheosis retreats, for example, where we have men and women. It's not like it stops the healing from being able to happen. And it's not even noticeable, but it is noticeable when you have a men's circle and you just notice, oh, there's this like extra level of honesty. You don't really feel like you need to come across in a certain way. And I think that adds to the medicine a lot.
Yeah, well said. I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so coming back to your entrepreneurial journey, I think there'll be a lot of people who are listening who have some kind of relationship with some sort of healing modality where they have experienced it, they have experienced the benefits of it, and they would like to step into service with it at some point in the future, or there's some sense of aliveness or excitement around potentially doing that. But I think a lot of people get stuck there because just resistance, or it's like overwhelming when they think about it. And so I want to kind of go back to when you were at that place with men's work. For that person in that space, what would you advise? And I'd be curious to hear in more like concrete terms what you actually did to when you were like, okay, I think I want to facilitate my own men's work sessions. What do you do from there?
Yeah, good question. So I'd say there was a lot that prepared me for that. Um, I do think that joining a couple of different business focused containers was really crucial in my process, honestly. Um, Even though we had been kind of training and incubating for years at High Existence, had an environment to practice. Business is a very, very deep domain. In one sense, it's extremely simple. Literally, it's just create something you want to see in the world, something that's genuinely valuable, something that would have been a godsend to a prior version of you. Create that, make it good and beautiful, genuinely valuable, and then go tell people about it. Go build the bridge. Tell as many people as you can in as many ways that you can, and invite people to experience what you're creating, and then charge an amount that you deserve for it, an amount that is an appropriate compensation. In one sense, that's super simple. And I like to emphasize the simplicity because we can get endlessly bogged down in the complexity of business and feeling like, oh, there's so many bells and whistles and there's so much to figure out. When you boil it down, it is extremely simple. And at the same time, it is also complicated. And it perhaps the most complicated part is that it brings up all of our stuff and all of our resistance. And it's like a serious warrior initiation to really create something and offer it to the world and stand behind your own creation and say, I created this and I put my name on this and I believe in this and I believe in it so much I'm willing to tell you about it and I'm willing to speak about it again and again and again. I'm willing to literally make art and messages about this for years on end to tell you about what I'm creating and add value to your life to help build the bridge so that, for one, so that I can just create something intrinsically valuable with the messages I share, but then also so I can build the bridge and find the people who are meant to go deeper into what I'm creating and receive the deeper layers of the impact that I'm able to create. Um, so business is a very, very deep journey. So I do think there were a couple containers that were valuable for me. I did like an 8-week one-on-one business coaching container. That was a significant investment back in 2020, same year that I did Jiro Taylor's 1-year men's work and business container that combined men's work and business. And those containers did offer really good tactical advice and wisdom about building the type of business I was building. So that was helpful. But I think honestly, perhaps the biggest thing for me that was catalytic in those experiences was just that I made a significant investment in myself, in my business, in my future success, an investment that mattered to me, that was like, oh, this has weight. I just invested $10,000 into the future success of my business. That's an amount that I care about. I am not going to have that be a poor decision. I'm going to make sure that was a good decision. And now I have a time bound amount of time And I think the 8 week container, that's that can be a good amount of time to make some good strides for sure. But I'm glad that I had the 1 year container as well. But really, it was like a several month period right after I made those big investments in 2020 that I really just like kind of activated a new level of just going all in on what I was doing and building the bridge and just kind of fully stepping into that new identity of like, okay, I'm doing this now. Like I'm burning the boats. There's no turning back. I just, invested most of my savings at the time into this, and like I'm going to find a way to make this work. And it can be a little paradoxical because you don't really want to come from the energy of, oh, I need this to work. Like, oh, I need people to join my thing. Because when people feel that, if people feel that from you, that kind of needing this, that grasping, like I'm trying to get something out of a person, that's not the energy you want people to feel. That's not the energy people want to feel. So it's a deep mirror because it's like, can you go all in while also, as much as possible, still coming from wholeness and coming from an energy of my cup is full, my cup is overflowing. I know that I'm innately whole and worthy within myself. My value does not actually depend on whether someone joins my thing or, whether this works out monetarily. Like the more deeply that you've gone on your own healing journey is very valuable, especially I think in transformational business, because when you're creating a transformational service of some kind, in a very real sense, you are yourself the desired outcome. A lot of why people will want to work with you is that they see how you show up, they see the energy you embody and how you move through the world, and they feel like I would like to embody more of the qualities that I'm seeing in that individual. And so when you're able to embody the transformation that you are wanting to bring people through, that is what gives you more gravity and more magnetism, where people are going to, want to receive what you're offering. And so it's kind of a dance of, can you go all in with that like penetrative masculine life force of like, I'm going to strike this world like a meteorite. I'm going to make things happen. I'm going to relentlessly take action. I'm going to do what needs to be done. But can you do that as much as possible from an energy of innate surrender and wholeness and my cup overfloweth, maintaining that connection to the intrinsic abundance of now, the artistry of now, the beauty of now, letting yourself feel that everything is already here in a profound sense. Everything's already enough, and coming from that energy as much as possible, because people are going to feel that in the way that you build the bridge, in the way that you invite people deeper into your ecosystem, in the way you show up on a discovery call, on an enrollment call. Your energy is a massive aspect. And so, yeah, essentially I would say those investments and those containers catalyzed me to go all in on a new level. And I was at a stage in my own healing journey and my own inner journey where I think I was able to walk the talk and embody what I was calling people into at a deep level. And so I was able to create results for myself and start to create what I wanted to bring forth. And then initially, I was doing different types of containers. The specifically men's work containers began a little bit later in the process, but essentially by that point, I had already proven to myself that I could do it, and I kind of knew the essentials of what it would take. And one of the most powerful things for me is to speak more directly to your question of like, if someone has something that they know is valuable and they're wondering how to get started, a couple things I'd recommend. For one, just dive in and start offering the service as soon as possible. Literally start helping people, start giving sessions, even if you're at first just gifting sessions. I know like one very high level coach comes to mind who, for the longest time and probably still today, like his whole approach to building the bridge was just to gift about 8 sessions per month. He would just go into a meditation and ask himself, like, who in my world, who in my field, like, is would I love to gift a session to? Who is like calling for a gifted session? And then he would just reach out to those people and say, you came to mind in my meditation this week of someone I'd love to gift a session to this month. Would you like to receive that? And people would say yes. I mean, I myself, he reached out to me and I said yes multiple times, and he offered really beautiful gifted sessions to me. And he would be super pro about these gifted sessions. He would send you like a document beforehand that really laid out his whole container and kind of initial agreements of what it would be like to step that container with him. So it felt very pro. And then he showed up fully for those sessions, and you would really experience the medicine of working with him. And, it's not surprising to me that a significant number of people who would experience that would either immediately want to go deeper with him and ask, how do we do more of this right now? Or a seed would be planted, and 1 or 2 or 5 years later, they would decide, I'd really like to go deeper into what I experienced that time with Kevin. So, but the thing is, usually people underestimate like how much they need to put the reps in to really get good at what they're doing. So that's why I say like dive in and start offering the service as much as possible. For one, you're planting those seeds, you're building the bridge actively and finding the people who can become your paying clients over time. But for two, you're also dialing in your craft, you're honing your craft, you're learning and directly witnessing what works well with people and what really brings forth impact and transformation, so that you can increasingly refine what you're doing. So I think just diving in and starting to offer things is extremely valuable. The other thing I would say is it is very worth it to create some kind of website or web page for the offering you're creating. Like find examples that speak to you of offerings that you feel like, damn, this is a really good page, and create your own version of that. Use something like lovable.dev. Nowadays, there's these vibe coding tools that make it incredibly easy to build a whole website or a web page. You literally just, as if you were talking to ChatGPT, you don't need to know any code. You just tell it, design me a world-class, high-touch, prestigious website geared toward this type of person with this type of offer, and I want it to have these words on it. I mean, it can help you write the words too. I recommend doing a lot of the writing yourself, because AI generated writing has its own flavor, and when you make yourself bring forth those words, they're going to be more true to your heart and soul, and you'll spend more time getting clear on what the real value is and the real essence of what you're wanting to bring forth. But that process of even just creating a professional site can be a very transformational process, because in simply creating that, you're literally spending hours and hours and days staring at this portal that's coming to life right in front of you, that's reflecting back to you the version of you that you're stepping into, the leader, the professional, and you're seeing it take shape right in front of you. And then you've got something very pro that you can then send to people and say, hey, I'm starting a coaching practice or a facilitation practice, and I felt a calling to send this to you and to ask for your feedback on it, or ask if you know anyone who might benefit from this, or I'm offering a certain number of gifted sessions, and then you can just start talking to people about it. So those are some of the first steps that I'd recommend. So yeah, long answer, hopefully valuable for people.
So you have hosted, what was your program called that was itself a business container for people? It was like a shamanic business container. What was the name of that one?
Ouroboros. I want
Ouroboros,
to
yeah.
do.
Yeah, and I assume that you've probably helped or at least witnessed other people on this journey a bunch of times. And so I'm curious from what you've seen and from your own experience, what are some of the main areas or places that you see people get stuck in this process?
Honestly, I feel like the biggest thing that I see time and time again, and it's very um, heartbreaking in a way. It's very tragic. Is just that the main way people get stuck is just their own resistance and their own fear. People just have deep layers of fear of taking action and letting themselves be seen and believing in what they're doing and standing behind what they're doing and being persistent to just keep going, and to not take it personally when you make a post and no one responds to it, or you send 50 direct messages to people and you only get a couple of replies. For most people, like that type of thing is going to become very normal for you. If you're actually going to live this path, you need to become a master at not taking it personally, not even interpreting it as rejection, just not taking it personally when it's not the right time for someone to take you up on what you're sharing about or what you're spreading the word about. You just need to almost scientifically see it as all of it's an experiment. There is no failure. Failure is only feedback. Everything is just getting feedback so I can continue iterating on what I'm doing and get better at it. But most people, they take things way too personally. They take it personally that the post got only 2 likes, or they take it personally that they sent out 15 messages and they only got one reply. And that handicaps them. Or a lot of people, they don't even get to that point. They won't even click publish on the first post, or they won't even send the first 10 direct messages because they're so afraid of what people will think and afraid of rejection and afraid of failure and a whole other host of nebulous fears, afraid of being excommunicated from the tribe, afraid of being viewed as insane or a weirdo or an outcast, afraid of losing social credit or status. There's just like, you have to face all of your fears to be able to do this. That's why I really say it's a warrior initiation, because there's so many subtle layers of fear and resistance that a person has to overcome to get to that space of really having that bulletproof mindset where you're able to receive feedback. It's good to be able to receive feedback, but you want to reach a place where you just really don't take other people's opinions of you that seriously. You don't care if someone views you as crazy. Like, you don't care if someone thinks, oh, that guy really fell off the map. Like, oh, because most people won't understand, especially if you're on a path like this and you're on a mission to help the world through a transformational modality that only a small percentage of the world has heard of. In our circles, everybody knows about breath work and men's work and meditation and plant medicine, and that's the norm in a lot of our networks. Most of the world still hasn't heard of any of that stuff, or if they've heard of it, they have a completely distorted view of what that is. Even therapy, which is very mainstream, still, like, most people have a very confused understanding of what therapy even is, and they think it's only for insane people. And if you're going to therapy, that means that something's really wrong with you, or they think of coaching and the only image they have is like a stock photo of a life coach, like carrying a briefcase, like, and like just thinking that's some kind of scam or something. So if you're going to play at the leading edge of something, at the leading edge of a transformational movement that almost no one understands, then massive numbers of people are going to misunderstand you and misperceive you and project all types of things onto you and not be able to relate to what you're doing and, discredit you in their mind. And you have to reach a place where the mission is more important than that. You have to get over yourself and say, the mission is more important than my own ego. The mission is more me getting wisdom to people, getting signal to people, getting people the help they need on this earth, this earth that's crying out for assistance. I mean, mankind murdered 100 million of his own brothers and sisters in the 20th century alone. Like, we need to reckon with the fact that we are deeply lost as a species. I mean, the way that we're treating ourselves on this planet and treating our children is it's abhorrent. It's horrible. And you really, if you're gonna go all the way with this type of mission, you need to reckon with that and let that deeply affect you and crack your heart open. You need to weep the tears and feel the suffering of our earth mother and of this earth and the beings here. And you need to care about helping to alleviate that more than you care about what somebody's going to say about, you and about you doing your thing. The mission has to become way more important than what any person might think about it. And that's not easy to do. So people's fear and resistance outweighs their conviction. People are lacking, even people that have a lot of wisdom, people that have been on deep healing journeys, transformational journeys for decades, who are like carrying huge wisdom. Their fear and resistance still outweighs their conviction in their own wisdom and their conviction in what they have to offer. And they're not fully owning the depth of their own wisdom. They're not owning the myth of their life and really realizing, like, I lived a fucking hero's journey in this life, and whatever other lifetimes or whatever lives my ancestors lived that I'm partially tapping into. People are not owning their story and the myth of their life and the full power of that. And so they let their fear and resistance and their inner critic essentially handicap them and stop them from taking relentless action. Of course, there are seasons. There are seasons where it's time to rest. You can't just always be fully switched on. You need to listen to your body and take the time to rest. But a lot of people, they've been resting for 5-10 years. They're literally just like, their life has become an endless healing process, and it's an elaborate form of resistance because there's always the next thing to heal, so I can avoid actually taking action and building something and impacting this earth. And at a certain point, you have to get radically honest about that and snap yourself out of it, or find radically honest people who can consistently reflect to you and snap you out of it. And that's part of the value of men's work, is surrounding yourself with guys who can consistently cut through your bullshit and say, let's go. Like, it's time. Get over yourself. Like, let's act. And let's act from wholeness. Let's act from the remembrance that we're already enough. Let's act from the remembrance that this moment's already enough as it is, and really letting ourselves feel that deeply. And let's care enough about the mission to act and to build. So yeah, I would say it really boils down to fear and resistance. And I wish there was a magic bullet for people to overcome that. But in my experience, the most notable way that I've seen to overcome that is really to just put the reps in. It's literally just, you don't get rid of fear. You just get used to feeling the fear and resistance and acting anyway. And you just do that time and time again until you gradually, and you get better at holding space for the fear and resistance. You don't completely identify with it. You learn to just feel it coming up and cradle it to your breast like a mother holding a wounded child and say, I see you, dear one, like feeling this terror of hitting publish on this post or of reaching out to these people. And, I love you. I'm going to make space to feel that feeling and hold you in love. And then I'm going to act anyway. I'm just going to continue to act in accordance with the deeper knowing of the mission. And there can be other modalities that can help you more deeply transfigure and transmute your fear, like breath work or plant medicine, things like that. But in my experience, it's never going to fully go away. You're going to feel fear and resistance ongoingly especially as you come to new thresholds in the process. And again, you just have to be a warrior. Essentially, you become a warrior who does not let fear control their life. Something is more important than your fear. So you just continue to act in spite of the fear. You just do the thing.
Damn. Thank you for the transition, dude. Yeah, that was potent. So we got a couple minutes left. So the last thing I'll ask you is, well, number one, where can people find you? And number two, do you have any offerings or anything that you want to share with people?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So people can find me on most social platforms, just searching my name, Jordan Bates. Um, our website is councilofkings.co. Councilofkings.co is where you can find all the men's work offerings. And yeah, we have ongoing circles that are happening. You can apply on the site if you'd like to get involved. We have a retreat coming up in a few days here, probably too late of notice on that, in Italy. And then later this year, we have another retreat coming up in Mexico where we're going to go to Cumancaya and sit with ayahuasca. And that looks like it's actually going to be a mixed retreat with both men and women, not purely a men's retreat. Just felt like a group was naturally coming together that was people who've been there previously to Kumankaya, so decided to make that one a mixed retreat. But yeah, our site has our offerings. Also, subscribing to my newsletter is one of the best ways to stay informed. So jordanbates.substack.com is my primary newsletter. Yeah.
Man, thank you so much. This has been incredible. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome, brother. Thank you.